I used to live a life filled with resentment and prejudice. As a person of color, I grew up in a small community where racial discrimination and social injustice were unavoidable. I carried a deep-seated anger toward white people, whom I believed were the root cause of all the suffering and injustice that my community and I endured. But everything changed on a fateful day when I experienced a near-death experience, NDE, and encountered Jesus. He revealed a shocking truth to me about white people, a truth I never could have imagined. That day, I was driving home after a long, exhausting day at work. It was raining heavily, the roads were slippery, and I lost control of my car. My vehicle crashed into a large tree on the side of the road. I felt a powerful impact, and then everything went dark. When I regained consciousness, I was no longer in the car. I found myself standing in a vast space, filled with warm, gentle light. The air was pure and serene, with no sound whatsoever. I felt a peace I had never experienced before in my life. Suddenly, a figure appeared before me. It was Jesus. He didn't need to introduce himself. I knew immediately who he was. His eyes radiated understanding and boundless love. He looked at me and said, "You are here for a reason. I want you to know the truth about the world you live in." I didn't understand what he meant, but I could sense the seriousness and importance of his words. Then he raised his hand, and before my eyes appeared images of human history. I saw wars, racial discrimination, suffering, and the injustices that humans had inflicted upon one another. I also saw white people, whom I had always considered my enemies, suffering and enduring pain no less than mine. Jesus looked at me and asked, "Do you know why these things happen?" I shook my head, not daring to speak. He continued, "It all stems from ignorance and human greed. But there is one truth I want you to know, a truth that few dare to speak." My heart raced. Jesus looked straight into my eyes and said, "White people, they are not the evil ones as many believe. They too are victims of systems and ideologies that have been sown for hundreds of years. The truth is, they are also suffering, also searching for truth and love like everyone else." I was stunned. What he said completely contradicted what I had always believed. I had always thought that white people were the cause of all injustice, but now I realized that they too were just human beings, with their own pain and confusion. Jesus continued, "I do not distinguish by skin color, race, or religion. All are my children. But for this world to change, people need to understand that they are one. Only by loving and forgiving one another can they find true peace." Then he raised his hand, and I felt myself gently pushed backward. The light gradually faded, and I woke up in a hospital bed, surrounded by worried loved ones. I knew I had just experienced something miraculous, something I would never forget. From that day on, I changed completely. I no longer looked at white people with prejudice or resentment. I understood that they too were human beings, with their own pain and struggles. I began sharing my story with others, hoping it could help them see the world differently. The truth Jesus revealed to me was not to divide or incite, but to heal. He wanted us to understand that, regardless of our skin color or background, we all deserve love and forgiveness. And only when we truly understand that can the world change. This is my story, a near-death experience that changed my life forever. I hope that, through this story, you too can find a little light and peace in your soul. Expanded section, The Journey of Change and Spreading the Message. After waking up from my near-death experience, I spent many days reflecting on what Jesus had revealed to me. I realized that, for years, I had lived in resentment and prejudice. I had blamed white people for all the problems my community and I faced. But now, I understood that the truth was not so simple. I decided to change my perspective on the world. I began studying history, learning about the systems and ideologies that had led to racial discrimination and social injustice. I realized that white people were also victims of these systems. They had been fed distorted ideologies from a young age, and many of them didn't even realize they were being manipulated. I started participating in community activities, where I had the opportunity to meet and talk with white people. I listened as they shared their struggles and pain. I realized that, despite our different skin colors, we all shared similar pains and desires. We all wanted to be loved, understood, and to live in a fairer world. I also began sharing my story with others. I told them about my near-death experience, my encounter with Jesus, and the truth he had revealed. I hoped that, through my story, people would see the world differently. I wanted them to understand that only by loving and forgiving one another could we create a better world. Conclusion: the message of love. My story is not just about a near-death experience. It is a lesson in love and forgiveness. Jesus taught me that, regardless of our skin color or background, we are all his children. We all deserve love and forgiveness. I hope that, through this story, you too can find a little light and peace in your soul. Remember, love and forgiveness are the keys to moving forward together. Share this story if you find it meaningful, and let's work together to build a better world.